With Pete Alonso at 9 home runs and Francisco Lindor at Juan Soto tied at 7, the question on our minds right now is, can the Mets have 3 players who hit 30 home runs apiece?
On 10 occasions in Mets history, they have had multiple players with 30 homers or more in the same season. But never before has a New York Mets team featured 3 guys with at least 30 home runs. We're looking at 3 potential future Hall of Famers hitting 1, 2, and 3 in this Mets lineup. It's rare, it's special, and that's why I think this season could be the first time we ever see a trio of Mets hitting 30 or more homers in one season in Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso. The best 1-2-3 punch in all of baseball.
Welcome to Meet at the Apple, presented by PC Richard & Son. I'm Vito Calisi. That's Jonathan Barron. And a reminder to follow this podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Please, guys, those 5-star reviews, those comments, they make a big difference. Leave a review, leave a comment on there, and send us a shout out if you're listening to the podcast. But John, what a night for orange and blue teams in New York City, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you guys know me, huge Knicks guy over here, take a 2-0 series lead. So I know New York is a buzz about that. I'm a buzz about that, but I'm also pretty happy with the way that this 3-game series went for the Mets in Arizona. Just a weird place to play. A big outfield, lots of runs scored in that building, air conditioning all the time.
A giant wall.
Giant wall, strange crowd. I mean, when the Mets go there, there's always a big Mets contingent. The Diamondbacks are always wearing something different. By the way, I love the City Connects at Arizona just rolled out. But, you know, we didn't do a recap after the Cardinals series, and it was frustrating for sure. I think that most Mets fans who watched that series, especially the doubleheader on Sunday, came away feeling that way. A close loss in game 1 of the doubleheader Sunday. The Mets do all they can in game 2. Soto hits a ball that's gone in most parks. Victor Scott II takes it back. The Mets barrel up baseballs left and right. They lose a 1-run game. The Mets have played the most 1-run games in baseball. And people are feeling down. The Mets lose 2 straight. They haven't lost 3 straight all year, and they kept that up by winning game 1 of this series. They lose game 2, and they win game 3. And Vito, for me, was the Mets stars that really put the team on their back in this 3-game series against a good Diamondbacks team. Francisco Lindor, 3 hits, 5 RBIs. Juan Soto, 3 hits, 4 walks, 3 RBI, the 2-homer game in game 3 of the series. Francisco Alvarez, 3 for 7 in the series. The huge caught stealing in game 1. Pete Alonso, it's a big home run in game 1. So the Mets, they've shown they have different ways to win games. They've shown that all season long. They're a team that doesn't strike out much. They don't chase. They make a lot of contact. They induce a lot of ground balls. And they've got star power. And any given night, it's somebody else that can help really put the team across the finish line and help earn a victory. And we saw that in Arizona. And the Mets enjoy a day off on Thursday, feeling good about themselves, earning a series victory. Again, have not lost 3 games all season. That's because of how well-rounded of a team this is.
And also, John brought up, we didn't record a recap after the Cardinals series. That had nothing to do with how frustrated we are. I just happened to be at a wedding. John had something to do in the morning, so we couldn't do an episode right at that time. It was just a scheduling conflict. We promise you, even if there's a frustrating series, we will most likely do an episode after. There was just some scheduling mishaps that day. But, yeah, John, this was a big bounce-back series on the road in Arizona. Like we said, that 25-foot wall in dead center field just reminds me of the early days of Citi Field, of just like, I don't understand why you would put that in a ballpark. I know the ball flies in Arizona, so there is reasoning behind it, but look, I think this is a perfect time before we just get ahead of ourselves. Why don't we just jump into it? Why don't we talk about the top moments of the series presented by PC Richard & Son? So let's talk about the top 5 moments of Mets Diamondbacks. And I'm going to start off number 5, Francisco Lindor's home run in game 1.
Yeah, for Francisco to hit that home run, he did the Lindor lean. He has been an absolute thorn in the side of the Diamondbacks since he came over to the Mets. Number 4, it's Pete Alonso's home run in game 1. Those two, the dynamic duo atop the Mets lineup. Corbin Carroll leads off the game with a home run. Pete Alonso takes the lead right back, stays red hot with his absolute moonshot in Arizona.
And then we go to game 3, where we're going to go to the defensive side of the ball. because Tyrone Taylor to Francisco Lindor to Luis Torrens to get that out at the plate. This team is just so special when it comes to defense. And there's another moment we're going to bring up momentarily, but absolutely electric.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Another defensive moment for moment number 2. Francisco Lindor applying the tag to the very fast Alek Thomas in the 9th inning of Game 1. Francisco Alvarez, one of the fastest pop times of his career, throwing down, Mets catching. We've talked about it all season. Has controlled the running game unlike any other team in Major League Baseball. The Mets put on a defensive clinic in this series. Perhaps no play bigger defensively than Alvy's throw, Lindor's tag. The Mets preserved the Game 1 victory thanks to that great defense.
And then the number one moment of Mets Diamondbacks, Juan Soto starts off the game, hits the ball 110 miles an hour, finds an outfielder's glove, and you're wondering, oh, are we going to have another game like Sunday? But no, we're not, because Juan Soto has a 2-home run game to help the Mets get put ahead of the Diamondbacks and have this 7-1 victory. Juan Soto is absolutely firing up right now, and he's on a crash course headed to the Bronx in 2 weeks.
He is. And Vito, you mentioned Soto. And for me, I love to see the swing, hitting the ball to center field with authority, 427 feet, I believe, on the first home run, and then going the opposite way. We saw that the last time the Mets were home back on May 1st, his first and second home runs at Citi Field, using the other field, and that is Juan Soto's sweet swing, his second multi-homer game in less than a week. And I think we can all agree Juan Soto is heating up. And Vito, don't look now. Juan Soto has 7 home runs in 38 games. You do the math. Juan Soto is a guy that posts. He plays every day. It's one of the best things about Juan Soto. It's why the contract is an underpay, because Juan Soto plays virtually every single day. He's on pace for 30 home runs. Pete Alonso leads its Mets team. He has 9 home runs. Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, the number 1, the number 2 hitters in the lineup. Pete Alonso, number 3. Lindor and Soto tied for second place on the Mets with 7 home runs each. That, over 162 games, gets you to 30. And Vito, I don't know if you know this, but the Mets have never in their history had 3 players on the same team with 30 or more home runs in a single season. Vito, I think this could be the season that the Mets, for the first time ever, have 3 guys with 30 or more home runs. And Keith Hernandez said it a couple weeks ago in the booth, and it rings true. These are 3 potential future Hall of Famers in Soto, in Alonso, in Lindor. And this trio we're watching and the season that they're all having simultaneously, it's special. Don't take it for granted. Most baseball seasons do not have this kind of greatness we're seeing. And Juan Soto, the power stroke is absolutely back. And it's beautiful to see.
Yeah, I mean, look, Sarah Langs tweeted actually tonight just pointing out that Juan Soto's last 19 games, he's on an absolute tear, hitting 300, slugging 407. This is the Juan Soto everybody's been like waiting to see, which is funny to say because Juan Soto's still been on base pretty much every single game we've seen this year. But you bring up the power and you bring up the home runs from those 3 guys. And before the season, I like randomly texted you one day bringing up, oh, hey, like, if Pete hits at this pace, which is pretty regular for him, there's a chance he could break Darryl Strawberry's record on David Wright Day. John, we're at the point now where Pete Alonso is probably going to break that record way before David Wright Day.
Yeah, I mean, Pete Alonso's closing in on David Wright for second in Mets history for home runs. The Cubs are coming to town. I know it's kind of random because the Cubs are an NL Central team and the Mets only see them twice a year, but I mentioned Francisco Lindor's dominance of the Diamondbacks, especially since coming to the Mets. Go ahead and take a look at Pete Alonso's dominance against the Chicago Cubs. We know that he set the Mets single-season rookie home run record back in June of 2019, broke Darryl Strawberry's record when the Mets went to Wrigley. Notable series for other reasons. Won't get into that. And then Pete Alonso set the Mets single-season home run record against the Cubs later that year when Chicago came to Citi Field in August. And he's also just been generally dominant against the Cubs throughout his big league career. So Cubs coming to town could be a big weekend for Pete Alonso. But like I said, this trio is special. And all 3 of them have been hitting for big power. Brandon Nimmo has been hitting for power recently. Right now, his pace is a little under 30 home runs. But dare I say, the Mets could have possibly 4 guys pushing the 30 home run mark. And, I said this at the top of the episode. That's what makes this such a deep team. And there's another thing that I take away from this series. And you hear a lot of people talk about the strength of schedule to this point and who the Mets have played and who they haven't played. And I want to point out two things. Number one, I say this often. You've heard me say this. If you guys have been listening to this show or Future of Flushing, here's the fact about baseball. There might be 10, 12 good teams in the league. That leaves you with, maybe 18 not so good teams in the league. You play who you play. You play who's in front of you. You either beat the good teams, you either beat the bad teams, or you are a bad team. That's how you win 90, 95, 100 games. By winning the games you should win and winning about 60%, maybe more of the games that are tough games. And right now, to this point, the Mets have played 12 games against teams 500 or better, and the Mets are 8-4 in those games. And that is the best winning percentage in baseball against teams with records 500 or better. So yes, the Mets have not had a front-loaded schedule in terms of good teams they've played, but they've taken care of the teams that they should take care of, and they've played better against the good teams than people have given them credit for. And to go to Arizona and take 2 of 3 in their house, and like I said, a real weird place to play baseball. Just a weird place. It's kind of like Colorado Light, honestly, out there at Chase Field. To take 2 of 3, and the Mets wins against the Diamondbacks, Vito, all in convincing fashion for the most part. The Diamondbacks wins against the Mets, outside of game 2 of the series we just played on Tuesday night, 1-run games. And in the 1-run game, it comes down to a pitch, a swing, a ground ball, the slightest of margins. The Mets dominated the Diamondbacks at times in the series. A really encouraging sign for the Mets to get this series victory. We remember the victory on Getaway Day in Arizona last year in August and how big that was when the season was over, and that was the tiebreaker. Who knows where things could shake out this year, but to come back, enjoy the off day, feeling good, head into the Cubs series, a really nice win. As big of a May 7th win as you can secure, in my opinion.
You also bring up the strength of schedule and playing bad teams versus playing good teams. And it's just such an unfair thing to look at and such an a misleading thing, because like if you take the Braves, for example, a team we haven't played yet, you played the Braves in the first week of the season. You played a team on a 10-game losing streak that looked like they were never going to come out of the depths. We did an episode when they were like towards the tail end of that, where we actually both said, hey, like Mets fans, have fun. Don't get your hopes up. This team isn't going to stay bad for long. But now you go look at the Braves right now. They're 2 games below 500. In the next week, they could be right back above. And then guess what? Now teams that play them are on the other side of that. So baseball is just so all over the place. If you played the Mets in May of last year, you played a bad team versus the best team in baseball all the way in August. So it's so tough to have that argument and talk to people about what is playing a good team versus playing a bad team. The Nationals, tons of talent on that team, below 500. Like, where does it end? Where does it start? But all that matters is the Mets are winning games. The Mets are in this 26 games in 27 days period they just went through. They're 16-10. We dread these kind of long road trips all the time. The West Coast trips feel like they always trip the Mets up. To go to Arizona and take 2 out of 3 after having some tough losses against Arizona last week means a lot for this team. And it's what they always say. This is a team that can get punched in the face and keep moving forward. Also, since we did not get to record an episode on Sunday night, we didn't get to talk about the 2 awards winners on the Mets. Pete Alonso wins Player of the Month. Luis Angel Acuna wins Rookie of the Month. And I'm really looking forward to Luis Angel's entire rookie campaign because, John, we're bringing up, we could have 3 30 home run guys. We could have 3 to 4. We could have 3 all-star position players. We could have a bunch of pitchers in the all-star game, and we could even have a Rookie of the Year in Luis Angel.
Yeah, and Acuna adding another trick to his toolbox, playing third base on Sunday in St. Louis, doing a good job at third base. So he just continues to prove his value. And, he's obviously really solidified himself on this team at this point. People continue to say that they don't see a world where he's not an everyday player because of what he brings to the table and all the different skills that he brings to the table. You talked about Pete Alonso. I mean, Pete Alonso and Fernando Tatis Jr. right now, those are the 2 leaders in the clubhouse. I know it's early. It's just May 8th. But those are the 2 guys when you talk about NL MVP. And I think right now, and I'm not being a homer here, but it's Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso has been at the center of this dominant lineup. The Mets and Padres, they haven't met yet. Those will be exciting games when they do. With the Padres come to Citi Field in September, I know that. I don't know when the Mets go to San Diego. I think it's maybe July, sometime over the summer. So we're a little ways away from that meeting. But, Pete Alonso has literally been an MVP caliber player, an OPS over 1,100, huge hits left and right. He comes up with the big home run on Friday night in St. Louis, the big home run we mentioned in the top 5 here on Monday night in Arizona. He's just been otherworldly. The improvements he's made when it comes to pitch recognition and swing decisions, to be sporting an on-base percentage that's hovering around 400. I mean, that is incredible. To be hitting with the authority that he's been hitting with, he's just a dominant force right now. And so congratulations to Pete. Congratulations to Luis Angel Acuna. And the other thing, Vito, that impresses me is not just the ability for the team to bounce back. Like you mentioned, they get punched, they come back 11-3 after losses this season. But, and I don't say this as a positive necessarily, the injuries are starting to stack up. The injury to AJ Minter is a real bummer, and the Mets announced that he will be undergoing surgery to have that lat repaired. Danny Young done for the season with Tommy John surgery. And on Sunday, the Mets lose Jesse Winker. Jesse Winker is going to be out, probably in the 6 to 8 week range. The Mets are already without 2 starting pitchers. They're getting by, and they're still figuring it out. And that speaks to the depth of this team put together by David Stearns and company. The injury bug is starting to bite the Mets. And for them to still be 10 games over 500, for them to still be able to weather the storm, for the starting pitching to still be as good as it has been without the 2 guys I just mentioned, Montas and Minaya, from the start of the season, for the Mets to still be able to field a competitive lineup and have a deep lineup, guys like Tyrone Taylor getting more burn with injuries in the outfield, and Tyrone Taylor stepping up, playing incredibly defensively. You talked about starting the relay play, or the bat that's been really, really good, and you pair it with the defense. And Tyrone Taylor, we talked about it last year, he is surplus value when you look at what the Mets are paying him right now and what he's providing the Mets in his role. He has been an absolute steal from the Milwaukee Brewers. He's even more of a surplus value right now than he was last year. You look at a guy like Luis Torrens, who has made such a great impact, filling the void left by Francisco Alvarez when the season started. When Juan Soto was having his struggles at the plate, other guys in the lineup picking up the slack. So you hope to see the Mets continue to do that. There's no reason to believe that they won't, but the injury bug is starting to bite. So injury gods, baseball gods, I ask, you made your point, please slow up, because the Mets have used a lot of different lineup combinations. And I'd be curious to ask Mendy about this. You look, the Mets have used, I think they're top 5 in baseball in lineup combinations. Some of that is by necessity. Some of that I think is matching up, but the Mets are still figuring it out, even with a lot of things that haven't gone right for them to this point.
You didn't even bring up Jose Siri going down for
That's
2 months, about a week, a few weeks ago. And then Tyrone Taylor just stepping up and being the everyday center fielder. Tyrone Taylor is the unsung hero of this year so far. I mean, it's tough to say because I think he does get a lot of credit, but I do still think he's somehow the most underrated player on this team right now. And I know that we're hoping to get to speak to him during this next homestand, but I know we've spoken to Pete and Lindor about different home runs. I really want to show Tyrone Taylor a few of these outstanding catches he's made this year. The one against Miami, the one against Arizona. Like, I just want to sit there and talk to him and be like, hey, like, could you just tell us like what it's like running this route and what is going through your mind? And like, at what point are you diving knowing you're going to catch it versus diving and being like, I hope I'm going to catch this ball? But the way we talk about Luis Angel Acuna being so much fun to watch on the base paths, Tyrone Taylor is so exciting to watch, read a ball and get after it. So much fun to watch.
Good base running, good defense, a pitching staff that throws a lot of ground balls and doesn't allow a lot of fly balls. Like I said, offensively, the Mets put the ball in play. They don't chase. They drive other pitchers insane with their plate discipline. They don't strike out. Obviously, that has a lot to do with not chasing. And they hit the ball when it is in the strike zone. I know that sounds kind of redundant, but not every team makes contact on pitches in the strike zone. Good offenses put pitches to hit in play, and that's what the Mets do. So the Mets, like I said, they beat you in so many ways. They wear other teams down. That is the strategy of this Mets team. And when you do it on both sides of the ball, that's how you're really a dominant force. That's how you really put yourself in position to win ball games in different ways. Because, hey, Pete Alonso, the last 2 games of this Arizona series went 0-for-7. The guy the Mets have ridden to so many victories so far this year, that wasn't the bat that was supplying the offense. Instead, it was Juan Soto having a 2-homer game. Instead, it was Luisangel Acuna coming up with a big hit. It was Jeff McNeil tripling. It was Luis Torrens that drove in a run. It's always someone different with this Mets team, and that's what excites me, because any given day, Vito, any given day, to all our friends out there, it's someone else carrying the freight. It's someone else getting the job done. And the Mets do the small things well. So even if it's no one having a 2-homer game, when you do the small things well, good things happen. You get guys over. You get guys in. You run the bases well. You play good defense. You don't give away extra outs. In fact, you take away extra outs. When the Diamondbacks are being aggressive, trying to steal in the 9th inning with Alek Thomas, bang, base is empty now because we just nabbed your guy trying to steal. Trying to score a run on a ball at the gap, bang, out at the plate. That's how good teams win baseball games.
Last thing I want to say about Tyrone Taylor is the Tyrone Taylor and Adrian Hauser trade now reminds me of so many Mets trades we've seen where you read the trade initially and you assume it's about one player and it ends up meaning so much more about the other. Like the Javi Baez trade, for example. When you look back at that trade now, and I bring that up for many reasons. One, I bring that up because there's a very specific person coming to Citi Field for their first time this weekend. But
never heard of him.
I bring up that trade because that Javi Baez trade the next year became the Trevor Williams trade. The Travis d'Arnaud trade became the Noah Syndergaard trade. I mean, like, we've seen this time and time again where you think the target is this one person, but it's the other person who ends up blowing your mind. And like, look, Tyrone Taylor ended up becoming the steal of that trade where it seemed like the Mets were going for pitching depth. And then Tyrone Taylor just explodes and becomes this piece of the team that, like, I can't imagine the team without Tyrone Taylor at this point. But John, why don't we move on? Why don't we talk about some of the pitching from this series? Start off with Griffin Canning in game 1. Griffin Canning just goes out there, shows he's a dog again. Threw the slider 42% of the time, got a 20% whiff rate out of that. Also did his typical thing, throwing a little bit of the kitchen sink. But Griffin Canning, dude, I like 2.5 ERA to start the season from a guy who led the American League in earned runs last year. Jeremy Hefner W.
Right. And part of the reason why he led the American League in earned runs from a raw number perspective is because he threw so many innings. And, guys just don't throw as many innings as Griffin Canning did last year. So the counting stats were not flattering necessarily for Griffin Canning. But again, you talked about Griffin Canning. You talked about the slider usage, and the Mets got their hands on Griffin Canning, and they said, "Hey, what do you do well?" And Griffin Canning said, "Well, I throw my slider's effective, my changeup's effective, my cutter's effective." And the Mets said, "Cool, do it more." And Griffin Canning is doing it more. And you're talking about his entire body of work to this point in 2.5 ERA. You look at his last starts; it's under 1.5. And I talked about the team ground ball rate. Griffin Canning's been at the forefront of that, 80th percentile in ground ball generation this year. And when you throw ground balls, even if you allow a single, issue a walk, you can erase it quickly. So, Griffin Canning has been a 5-and-dive guy where the Mets have gone, 2 times through the lineup with Griffin Canning, and they've turned it over to the bullpen, and Griffin Canning has done a great job getting the bullpen a lead. The offense has done a great job also taking the lead and getting it to the bullpen's hands, and the Mets have done a great job preserving those victories. But Griffin Canning, for a rotation that became pretty porous after losing a couple guys from last season's team, Luis Severino, Jose Quintana, the Mets bring back Sean Manaea, but he's not here right now. And if I told you that when we did our season wrap-up last year, that all 3 of those things would happen, you'd probably say, well, who's throwing these innings? And not just who's throwing these innings, but who's throwing good innings? Who's throwing zeros up? Griffin Canning's throwing zeros up. So, like you said, Jeremy Hefner, the entire pitching operation with the Mets have done a great job with Griffin Canning, getting the very best out of him and many others. And obviously David Stearns for identifying Griffin Canning as a good option, as a guy who the Mets could come in here and get the very best out of. And that's exactly what's happened. Griffin Canning continues to be a breath of fresh air for this Mets team. And dude, I got to say, I went back and I listened to our interview with Griffin Canning. He was He's one of my favorite interviews we've done. And,
I said I said
I
that to
feel
you
like
right
we got a lot of
after. It
that.
was incredible.
Yeah, it was smart baseball talk. And everyone's different. Some guys want to mess around. Some guys have big hobbies off the field. Some guys want to talk about their children. Some guys want to talk about cooking. Some guys want to talk just strictly ball. Griffin Canning was a bit of both, but he gave very, very cerebral and thoughtful baseball answers. And it was just a great conversation. If you guys haven't checked it out, make sure you do, because Griffin Canning is a huge part of what's happened and what is happening with this 2025 Mets team.
And then let's talk about Kodai Senga's performance in Game 3, because what stands out to me about this one, which I think everybody will agree, Kodai Senga didn't have his best stuff in Game 3. I mean, he walked 5 guys. It was taking him a while to put guys away. Like, it looked like he just was like really struggling to get through. But you look up and he's only given up 2 hits. He's getting out of every single situation he puts himself in. The ghost fork is just back again, getting no barrels, 40% whiff rate. And it just shows you that every guy on this rotation, and we've seen this with Max Kranick, we've seen this with other guys, like, the one thing they know how to really do is they work themselves into a situation. They're really able to hold composure and get themselves out of it.
Yeah, and for Kodai, I mean, the statistic that's about to come out of my mouth next plays exactly into what you just said. Kodai Senga this year, with runners in scoring position, has held opposing hitters to 4 for 31. So credit to Kodai for the typical example of bending but not breaking. And on Wednesday afternoon, keep in mind, the second time the Diamondbacks had seen Kodai Senga in less than a week, he pitched the game at Citi Field against Arizona last Thursday. So, for Kodai, we know that the ghost fork is his bread and butter, and it's his put away pitch. That's how he generates most of his strikeouts. I think that, the book is out around the league that that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to maybe, get the fastball over for strike 1, possibly for strike 2, but he might be going to the ghost fork for strike 2. And then once you're in the 2-strike count, he's going to try to get you to go fishing. And if a team has the patience, that's not a pitch that Kodai wants to throw in the strike zone. That's a pitch that Kodai wants to throw in the dirt. And, it's a deceptive pitch that looks like it's a 4-seam fastball, but it's not. The bottom drops out of it, and opposing hitters are swinging right over it. So if a team can be patient, then Kodai can find himself in a battle where maybe he's walking 2, 3, 4, on this day, 5 guys. But for me, what's most impressive is Kodai walked 5 guys, completed 6 innings, and still didn't even break 90 pitches, which is kind of unfathomable. So he's also finding different ways to beat opposing hitters because he does have a deep arsenal, but the ghost fork is always in the back of the heads of opposing hitters. And that's because it is both statistically and geometrically and, the physics of it. It's one of the best pitches, if not the best singular pitch in baseball as a swing and miss pitch. You mentioned 40% whiff on the day. That's just kind of run of the mill for Kodai with that pitch at this point. The shape, the way that it just drops off the table. And that's why, even though opposing hitters know it's coming and teams game plan for Kodai Senga, they know they're going to see him. They know they're going to see the ghost fork. Hitters still can't lay off the pitch. That's because the way that Kodai deceives opposing hitters and the way that the Mets game plan themselves when it comes to sequencing and countering what other teams are trying to do to game plan against Kodai Senga. So Kodai continues to dominate, no runs, lowers the ERA again. I believe only Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the Dodgers, has a lower ERA in the National League. So, for Kodai, just keep it up because his return is going as well as it could. And until opposing teams can prove that they can hit that ghost fork, just like Griffin Canning's slider, just like Clay Holmes' sinker. Clay Holmes hasn't allowed a home run yet this year. And if he does on whenever the Mets play next, whether it's Friday or Saturday, don't comment below. I don't want to hear it. I'm just pointing out the fact. The Mets are encouraging guys to do what makes them great. And I love it. And until you can beat us, we're just going to keep doing it.
You know what my favorite thing about Kodai Senga's 2 hits he gave up is when you look at those 2 hits, one of them was a play that he didn't cover and probably could have gotten an out. Maybe it would have been a tough play, but he might have been able to get an out if he ran over there. And then the other hit actually ended up resulting in a major out. That was the relay at the plate. So, I mean, like, it's still one hit might not have even happened. And the second hit ended up being almost more of a positive than a negative because you just got out of the inning sooner than you could have. So, just a really interesting, I think interesting is the best way to put it. A really interesting performance from Kodai Senga. And I think it's the kind of thing that shows you what a winning team looks like, because if a guy can go out there with not his best stuff and you can still win a game and he can still perform as well as he did, that's what you're looking for. I mean, we've seen performance like that from David Peterson before, where David Peterson's went out there, not necessarily had his best stuff. Like the game where he had like the blurry vision and like he didn't make it through as many innings as he normally likes to get to. When a guy's still able to go out there and give you a good performance and have a good game, it's just that's the kind of team that wins. And then I also want to give a big shout out to guys like Jose Budo. Jose Budo in game two, going out there in a situation that no pitcher likes. You're going out there, you're eating up innings, but still trying to keep the game and keep the game some sort of relatively close. Him being able to do that meant that they had everybody open as an option going into game three. That is so important for this team right now in the stretch where the bullpen has just been so overworked.
Yeah, I mean, Thursday is going to be a nice day off for the Mets. We saw Reed Garrett come in to a situation on Monday night and get out with the lead preserved. Edwin Diaz, I presume, was going to come into this game if it was a save situation on Wednesday. Francisco Lindor extended the lead with his double, so Edwin Diaz didn't have to come into the game at that point, which is nice. Get Edwin some extra rest. Daniel Nunez back in the fold. Daniel didn't have the greatest of returns to major league action, but still good to see Daniel back. I know Gary Cohen mentioned this on the broadcast on Monday night that Daniel was arguably the Mets' best reliever before he went down last year. So he's going to be a big part of this bullpen as well. We know that going back to what he did for this team last year. Max Kranick on Wednesday, giving the Mets some length once again. Out of the bullpen, we know how great he's been coming into the game on a dime, coming in for injured pitchers and coming in with, bases full of base runners and doing a great job stranding guys all season long. So the Mets continue to get the same excellence they've gotten from the bullpen. Now you add Daniel Nunez, another guy, by the way, who can go 4, 5, 6 outs. The Mets have a formula, and they're sticking to the formula. They're sticking to the plan. That formula becomes a whole heck of a lot easier when Juan Soto is cranking out 2-homer games left and right, and Francisco Lindor is driving in 5 runs during a 3-game series. And now the bat of Francisco Alvarez, who had a big game on Friday in St. Louis and had a nice weekend in general in St. Louis and is really making such an impact. You saw Alvy's reaction on Monday as the Mets were getting big outs late in that game as that game got closer. I know he snagged a pop out to end the inning. By the way, he's got the beard going now. I haven't seen an Alvy beard that thick, taking a page out of the book of Brandon Nimmo. He's only 23 years old. It feels like he's 28, 29, 30. We saw when he went to calm Edwin Diaz down a couple weekends ago in Washington, D.C., and that was right after he came back, made a season debut. This is a special player. And, we forget that he's only 23 years old. This guy is still getting better. He's still learning, but he's such a valuable piece, and he has such respect from his teammates, many of whom have been in Major League Baseball for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. You remember the way that Clay Holmes talked about Alvy when we talked with Clay Holmes back in spring training. Clay Holmes has been in Major League Baseball since 2018. Francisco Alvarez hadn't even made a professional debut at that point in time. And now the guys are working together, and Clay Holmes fully trusts a guy like Francisco Alvarez. So it's incredible to see, and the Mets are really lucky to have a player of that caliber at that age with that much experience, by the way, having played in the postseason last year, been the guy behind the dish, gone through the struggles, by the way. And then, we know that game 3 and game 4 of the Dodger series didn't go well. He was pressing. We know about the conversation he had with Starling Marte. And then game 5, Alvy had a huge game 5. Alvy made the last out of the NLCS. And I'm sure he wore that with him all offseason as he refined his swing, worked on his mechanics, tried to improve. And we're seeing those improvements come to the light now. All these experiences that he has had at just the age of 23, imagine for a second how good this guy is going to be when he is 26, 27, 28, 29. And we're seeing him blossom right before our very eyes. And I love that. To quote Pete Alonso from last year.
You brought up that Alvy, like having a guy like Clay Holmes have such respect for him. And another guy that was using Alvy as his like preferred catcher was Justin Verlander. Did you see the stat about Justin Verlander this week?
No, I don't
It
think I
was
did.
it was an age thing. It was since Justin Verlander's debut, I think it's like 20% of all time Major League Baseball players have made their debut.
Yeah, I mean, Verlander was drafted, what, 2004? I think that was the Phil Umber draft, so '04, out of Old Dominion University. So yeah, I mean, he's been around for quite a while. So I guess it makes sense. You look at Martin Maldonado of the Padres, who has caught 3 no-hitters, who was behind the dish for a no-hitter taken into the 7th inning on Wednesday night at Yankee Stadium. But, people rave about Maldonado and some other guys that have caught 4 no-hitters. Carlos Ruiz of the Phillies caught 4 no-hitters during his big league career. Jason Varitek, to have a field general that the entire team just, fully believes in, fully trusts, and then to have the offense on the other side of it that Alvy has. Remember, guys, 25 home runs hit a couple years ago as a young pup in this league. I know we've been talking about Alvy for a while, but his leadership on Monday night in particular, when the Mets 5-1 lead shrunk to 5-4, and the Mets get out of the 8th inning, and then Alek Thomas reaches to lead off the 9th, and he's a speedy guy, and the Mets eliminate him immediately by Alvy throwing an absolute dart down to second base. The third caught stealing by Alvy already. He's just different, man. He's different.
Yeah, Alvy's fun to watch. I mean, it was so exciting to see that he was actually going to come back and just get off to a hot start. And now, after years of this team having a role ever since Travis d'Arnaud left, feeling like it was just a black hole that really we could never find our footing with, having 2 guys that on any given day, not only are you going to have somebody that is a threat to run on, is going to control the game, is going to be a field general, you're going to have somebody that's also a threat at the plate and is going to give your team multiple chances to get ahead. I mean, it's the best situation we've seen in such a long time.
Right. And, we have long talked on this show and the future of Flushing as well, because the Mets have been building themselves up the middle as an organization with talent in center field, shortstop, second base, catcher. Think about this New York Mets major league roster right now up the middle. And who we've talked about, and this wasn't a plan, but you think about it right now, Tyrone Taylor in center field and the brilliant defensive play that he has portrayed all season this year and all year last year, his entire Mets tenure. Francisco Lindor, one of the best defensive shortstops in Major League Baseball. Almost as sure of a thing as it gets at the shortstop position. Francisco Alvarez at the catcher position. Luis Torrens at the catcher position. When you're solid up the middle like that, and you do all the other things I talked about earlier, running the bases well, putting balls in play, not chasing, making pitchers work, working counts, yada, yada, inducing ground balls, not allowing fly balls, not allowing line drives in the pitching perspective, the pitching side of things. That is winning baseball. That is what teams dream of. That is what front offices dream of building. When you have those pillars in place, the games will start to fall in the win column more so than the loss column. And when your big boppers aren't bopping, you're still finding ways to eke out victories. And it all starts up the middle. And that's exactly how the 2025 New York Mets are built. And that is why this team is on its way, guys. This Mets team is on its way. They win that game on Wednesday afternoon. They're coming back. We got another tough series. Chicago Cubs coming to town. The first time the Mets and Cubs are playing this year. It's a different Cubs team. Made a couple moves in the offseason. None bigger than Kyle Tucker. Acquired Matthew Boyd in the offseason. Showtime Managa is back, having a big year. Of course, we all know about the breakout season being had by Pete Crow Armstrong. And look, I know earlier I said never heard of him. And I know there's going to be a ton of talk about PCA this weekend. Guys, what's the point? What's the point of lamenting a move that was made in July of 2021? How many regimes ago? Front office regimes ago? What's the point? You win some, you lose some. PCA was drafted in 2020 by another regime. He had a really bad shoulder injury at the time. And kudos to the Cubs and kudos to PDA. The Cubs for developing him and for I said PDA. That's different. To PCA, no one thought that PCA was going to be hitting the way he has. When
No.
PCA was in the Futures game a couple years ago, the book on him was he is one of the best defensive center fielders in all of minor league baseball. We're not sure how the bat's going to turn out. Well, right now the bat's turning out, and that's awesome. He's a lot of fun to watch. Don't lament it, guys, because guess what? We have a team that's a lot of fun to watch. Let's just focus on that.
You win some trades, you lose some trades. It goes both ways. I mean, we just brought up Luis Torrens a second ago. Luis Torrens was traded here for $100,000. I mean, when you look at that's crazy. That is a crazy thing that David Stearns and this team was able to do. We brought up Tyrone Taylor. This team has an everyday starting center fielder who makes insane plays that also was traded for pretty much nothing major. So, well, you're going to, as a fan of a team, you're always going to look at the trades that were and wonder what they could have been if they weren't that or they were a little different. Just let's move on. And then after the Cubs, the Pirates come to town. And John, I got some bad news for you.
Yeah, I know. They're going to get Skenes. I know.
They are going to get Skenes. And I know you said you want to avoid them. It's going to happen. So let's just enjoy it. Let's see Paul Skenes.
No, I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm going to root for the Mets to put up 10 runs in the first inning and knock him out.
You think I'm not going to root for the Mets? Do you think I don't want to see him get shelled?
Well, then you're not. I mean, then you're not trying to enjoy watching him pitch. That's not enjoying him.
No, I can enjoy watching him pitch poorly to the Mets.
That would be enjoyable. Anything else I would not enjoy. But yes, I know that the Mets are going to get Paul Skenes. I think it's going to be Monday, perhaps. It looks like.
I think so. And I wonder,
might be Bark in the Park.
Is that his New York City debut? Because
I think he pitched. No, he pitched Yankee Stadium. I think the Pirates ended the season at Yankee Stadium last year. I believe he threw like 1 or 2 innings. It was just kind of he took the ball.
Yeah.
But it was the end of the year, so he was on an innings limit at that point. But no, I do know. But we got a fun weekend at Citi Field before the Pirates come to town. Mets and Cubs, always fun when the two big cities get together.
Clay Holmes jersey on Clay Holmes Day. That's crazy.
Did work out well. Clay Holmes, as we learned the hard way, sort of not a big hockey guy, but it's Clay Holmes hockey jersey.
The hard way would have been finding out at the Amazing Day panel in front of everybody. Would have been the hard way.
That's true. The New York Sirens will be on hand from the PWHL to throw out a first pitch for hockey night, so that'll be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, the locals are all home, but the Sirens will be with us on Friday night, so that's awesome for, like you mentioned, Clay Holmes hockey jersey night. And then Saturday, we got Edwin Diaz bobblehead night, presented by Mumu. And then Sunday, celebrate Mother's Day with Mom, a 12 o'clock start at Citi Field. Game can be seen on Roku, so a couple 7 o'clocks, 2 national TV games.
Sunday with a coin purse too, right?
Yes, I believe that's on Mother's Day. So
yeah,
wouldn't have it any other way. Makes all the sense in the world. 2 really, really hot teams, Mets and Cubs. Very exciting series. May is an exciting month, Vito. You got the Mets and Cubs right now. You got Skenes, like you mentioned. The Mets go to Yankee Stadium. Then they go to Fenway. Then they come home for Mets-Dodgers leading up to Memorial Day. That's 23, 24, 25, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Mets-Dodgers. That's going to be a bonanza of a series. Then the White Sox come to town Memorial Day, the Tuesday after, the Wednesday after. Mets are off Thursday. And then we're basically in June. You got the Rockies, May 30th, May 31st, and June 1st. And then it's June. You got 2 fireworks shows in that time frame. This is the time, man. And it all kicks off. I really want to say, I feel like what we've done so far at home, it's kind of been a warm-up, a little bit of a soft launch to the warm weather and what is going to be a tremendous summer. Just incredible vibes at Citi Field. So I know we're going to have big crowds all weekend. Cannot wait to see everybody out at Citi Field for what's going to be a huge series between the Mets and the Cubs.
And I'm just going to follow it up and say, guys, if you want to come this weekend, buy your tickets now, because we can tell you, we've seen the numbers. These tickets are moving fast this weekend. This place is going to be packed. These games are probably they're probably going to sell out. So if you want to go to these games, buy your tickets now. Mets.com/tickets is the best place to get it. Go get your tickets. You're going to want to be here this weekend. This place is going to be electric.
Hey, Vito, real quick, before we get out of here, we would be remiss if we forgot. We got some other big news to share, and we need some help from the Mets fans, and that is some voting help, because we've got our beloved mascots, Mrs. Met is on the ballot this year to be elected to the 2025 Mascot Hall of Fame. So we need all of you to do your civic Mets duty and vote for Mrs. Met. Voting opens on May 11th, runs through the 24th. You can vote every day during those 2 weeks. Visit mascothall-of-fame.com. Please, guys, Mrs. Met, we all love her. An absolute sweetheart. You see her around Citi Field. I remember I saw her in the stairwell in 2015. Took a picture with her. It's my Facebook profile picture.
You have her jersey.
I do have her jersey, so that's right. I probably should have worn it.
You would have a Hall of Famer's jersey if she gets.
Could be a Hall of Famer if everyone does what they got to do. Get those votes in, people.
This is so cool because I doubt, like, I haven't done the research. This is just me guessing. I'm gonna guess no other team has 2 mascots in the Hall of Fame.
I would say so. So we have a chance to make some history here, and also, if you do vote, we got some "I voted for Mrs. Met" stickers to hand out as well. So just like when you go in the primary or the general election, or whatever election you do your civic duty, you get the sticker.
Comptroller.
Everyone loves the sticker, comptroller, dog catcher, whatever it might be. So, they give out pens. I voted pens. Never really seen one, but apparently a thing. I voted sticker. Definitely have seen those.
You've never gotten the pen?
Never seen a pen, no.
It's in the booth.
Does it say I voted?
Yeah.
I just use like a big, ballpoint pen when I vote. I don't know. Also, I believe every experience I've had has been an electronic voting. What does that say? Vote NYC. Yeah, that's just a promotional thing. That's not an I voted.
Oh, but this is what you get when you vote. This is what they gave me at the voting thing.
Got it. Well, anyway, I don't believe we have pens, but we do have I voted for Mrs. Met stickers. So, guys, please, once again, May 11th through May 24th, get those votes in. Vote early. Vote often. Vote Mrs. Met. Get her in the Hall of Fame. We got the best mascots in baseball. Mr. Met's there. Let's get Mrs. there. Let's go vote.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. You can follow this podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm on Twitter at Vito F. Khaleesi. John is on Twitter at JMB9191. Like I said in the beginning of the episode, please, if you can leave us a review, it goes a long way. If you want to throw a question on there, we'll answer it on the pod. We will read reviews. Every review we get, we will read on the podcast. You leave a 5-star review, you write something nice, we'll give you a shout out on the podcast. So go hit that review button. If you're listening, share along. Some people were giving us shout outs on Instagram story. People were tweeting at us last week. If you listen to the podcast while you're listening, throw up a thing and tag us. We'd love to share it. So thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast that is presented by PC Richard & Son.
And that's a good reminder, Vito, because everybody should head to their local PC Richard & Son this week. They're local, they're family owned, and we know that they are guaranteed to have the best, the lowest prices, a friendly and a knowledgeable staff for every need you got. TVs, appliances, you want to watch your Mets in 4K, crystal clear, OLED, whatever it is. You want to see Juan Soto swing the bat and the seams of the baseball ripple when it hits the barrel of his bat and soar through the air, piercing the humidity. Well, you got to go to PC Richard & Son, get yourself a TV, of course, electronics, mattresses, whatever it is, they got it, and they're guaranteed to have the best, lowest prices. Get yourself the PC Richard & Son. It's the company you can trust since 1903.
I love those friendly salespeople. They're knowledgeable. They know what they're talking about. They'll tell you all about the mattress. They'll tell you all about those Samsung TVs. I'm going to go get a good night's sleep on my PC Richard mattress that I got there. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been Meet at the Apple.